right, Ted, you're good to go.
All right, thank you for that, John. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the April 6th meeting of the Design and Review Board for the City of Sebastopol. This meeting is being conducted utilizing teleconferencing and electronic means consistent with the State of California executive orders regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Live stream and Zoom is being utilized for this meeting. In case of technical issues, meetings will be uploaded to the city website as soon as possible after this meeting. We will be conducting today's meeting in a virtual setting using Zoom. Design Review Board members and staff are participating from remote locations, practicing social distancing. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting by the use of Zoom, as noted on the city's website and as noted on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak may do so during public comment or may comment on agenda items during the discussion of each item and must be logged into Zoom to do so. Anyone using abusive, vulgar, offensive, threatening, or harassing language, personal attacks of any kind, or offensive terms that target specific individuals or groups will be muted and removed from the meeting. Please do not abuse this new way to provide public comment. All right. Let's see. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yep. So I will start with Marshall Balfe.
Marshall, you are muted.
I'm mute. Can you hear me now?
There he is.
Yes. Okay.
Great.
Christine Lovell.
I'm here.
Okay. Carrie Bush, I believe, is absent. And Vice Chair Lars Lamberg is also absent. So we have Chair Ted Luthen.
Here.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for that, John. Let's see. I don't see that we have any minutes to review or approve. So that gets us to Planning Department update on matters of general interest. Anything fun going on at the city, John?
Yeah, so we're in the second stage of the housing element public outreach. I believe that some of the surveys have been posted to the city's website under the Planning Department's housing element update. I would urge those who are interested in housing within Sebastopol to participate in that. That's all I have. Carrie, did you have anything else to include on there?
Sure. John, do you want to report on the 2 council items last night?
I did not.
All right. So the council last night approved and did the first reading of an ordinance to ban any new fossil fuel gas stations or expansion of any fossil fuel infrastructure at existing gas stations. That'll go back for second reading and adoption on the 19th. They also discussed the planning commission structure and to determine 2 things. They started an ordinance that would revise the out-of-town geography for a couple of the out-of-town seats for businesses and the 1 out-of-town resident seat to be within the geography of the 3 school districts that serve Sebastopol. And then they did determine to reduce the number of the planning commission to 5, so it'd be the same as the DRB and the council and a lot of the other committees in the city. They did not get to the standard conditions of approval, which was reviewed by this board with John, as well as the planning commission, but that was bumped to their next meeting, April 19th.
Sounds good. Thank you, Carrie and John. Any questions of staff from our board members?
Yes, I have a question.
Fire away.
Okay, Carrie, is there a plan to get us off of this Zoom meeting format? Will we ever go back to in-house meetings for Design Review Board, or are we permanently on Zoom?
The city council is actually discussing that, I think, at their next meeting. And the city clerk has been working with the community center. I think city council is kind of the model. And we realized that there's two different locations that are kind of used for city meetings. One is the youth annex, which is used for planning commission and city council, and the city hall conference room for the public art committee and the design review board. And so that's part of the discussion as well of, well, okay, we can't necessarily do social distancing very well in the city council conference room, as many of you know, and we've done like the tree removal at Gravenstein apartment or the Woodmark projects we held in different locations. So how to handle that is part of that discussion as well. So they're discussing it in April, and so the earliest it would happen would be May. And I believe they're also trying to figure out the hybrid so that people who it's easier for them to join via Zoom can still do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Interesting information. And do we have any comments from the public regarding items not on our agenda? Anybody here just with something to say, or did we receive any communications?
I did not receive anything as far as public comment for items not on the agenda.
All right, and I'm not seeing any hands.
And
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, I do want to add one thing which will be of interest to this board, is that we did conclude the tribal consultation for the Woodmark project, which I know this board was involved with previously, last Wednesday, and we received the application on Monday. That is going through that ministerial process, so it wouldn't be coming to the board, but we did receive that on Monday.
Okay. Let's see, statements of conflict of interest. That's for Christine or Marshall. I assume if you had a conflict of interest, you probably would have recused yourself. So,
Oh, yes. Yes, I would have.
sounds good. Thanks, Marshall. Then let's move on to our regular agenda item. Our first item.
Okay,
is,
okay, go. Ted, one thing real quick. I
Fire away.
just have to ask Carrie a question. Carrie, I didn't quite understand what you were saying. Did you say that Woodmark made an application for their project? What did you say there exactly?
Yes, so they did, I think it was about a year ago, February 2020, they had submitted they had withdrawn their formal design review application and submitted an intent to go through the SB 35 ministerial process. Part of that is, the first thing you need to do is the tribal consultation process, and we have been in tribal consultation since about April or May of last year, April, I think, through, it just concluded last Wednesday with an agreement, enforceable agreement related to tribal resources. And so now that that is done, they are able to submit their application, and they did submit their application on Monday. We will be getting those, it's substantially similar to what you've seen before, but we will be getting that material up on the city website under the special project page next week. Our first, because of the streamlined process, our first priority was to get it out to all of the various reviewers so that they could start the review. The city has 60 days to review for consistency with our objective standards. And then if it is approvable, 30 days to issue a decision on that.
So when they issue the decision, and then they could just go ahead and build the project, I mean, what happens?
Yes, then they can go through the building permit just like a regular project would.
Okay. Thank you, Carrie.
Yep.
All right, thanks for that clarification. Back to our agenda item 8, 911 Litchfield Avenue.
Yeah. I did want to note that Kerry Bush did recuse himself for the 911 Litchfield Avenue.
Okay.
So I will go ahead with the staff report on 911 Litchfield.
Okay.
So the project proposal is for a new 1,800 square foot single-family dwelling with an attached two-car garage. The site includes, but the project includes 335 cubic yards of cut, 85 cubic yards of fill, and 250 cubic yards of off-haul. And also includes modifications to the existing retaining wall that is along the shared driveway. The lot is steeply sloped and shares a driveway and public utility easement with 921 Litchfield. This project also includes a drainage easement agreement with the neighbors at 931 Litchfield. With these slopes and easements on the property, it limits the developable footprint. So there's been some issues as far as what size, structure, and whatnot they're able to build on this parcel. The project is consistent with the general plan in that it creates a new permanent single-family residence on an undeveloped residential lot. The project is also subject to a tree protection plan and proposes to remove 11 trees on the site for development purposes. And the applicant has also included a landscape plan, which includes replanting some of those trees as part of the tree removal permit program. And I do believe we have, I think Amy is here from the project team. If she has a presentation, just please let me know, or if there's any additional questions, she can help out. And it looks like Peggy is also here as well, who's the property owner.
Sounds good. Thank you, John. Any questions of staff from our board members? Seeing, hearing none. So I'll welcome our applicant and property owner. If you'd like to make a presentation, we'd love to hear it.
Hi, well, Peggy was going to start, so
Okay.
Let her start. Can you start, Peggy?
Peggy, you're muted, by the way.
There we go. Okay. Hi.
There you go.
Those, nice to meet you. Those I haven't met yet already. So most of you know the story behind this lot. I purchased it a couple years ago, and the reason I purchased it is because my son and family live next door. And they built at 921 Litchfield about 5 years ago. And Amy was their architect also. And so when it came to building on this site and wanting a comprehensive look to go with the structure next door, I approached Amy about designing a home that would blend well with my son's next door, and also work with the challenges of the lot with the slope and the easements, and but also enhance the neighborhood with a wonderfully quality home. And besides working with Amy, I'm also working with Carrie Bush at Merge Studio for landscaping and site plan, and then Earth Tone Construction, a local company, is going to be the contractor building the house. So yeah, so I guess I just wanted to emphasize the fact that I'll be right next door to my grandchildren, which is what I'm looking forward to, and looking forward to becoming a part of the Sebastopol community also.
Sounds good. Thank you for that. Amy, do you have anything to follow up on?
No, I didn't know if, Jay, could you bring up the drawing 2 of 5 in the PDF, which I think is the image that is succinct and all the information you have, hopefully you've looked at, and I'll just briefly make a few comments. Hopefully, as they say, the drawings speak for themselves.
But the site plan itself, or the?
It was a drawing 2 of 5. It was the image board with the renderings. I tried to call that out in the titles of the boards, 2 of 5, but if you see something that says images, that's the one to grab.
Okay, I think I got it.
Okay.
I think it says page 2 of 5, renders / materials at the
Yep.
bottom.
There we go. So it's just been a delight to revisit this property 6 years later and to think about what it means to build a house that has its own character, meets the requirements for Sebastopol, which are I think spot on in terms of how you want to design, and also to create this yin yang, big brother, little sister, however you want to call it, with 921. And so first and foremost, I think if you look at the aerial view, if anyone recalls, there was a very significant view easement slashing across the 921 property that limited us to pushing us up against that back corner. But at the same token, in placing this site, we wanted to make sure we were also just keeping that zone open to the house above. And so their views are not impeded in any way. And then I'm sure you all know how difficult this site is. We basically twisted the property not only to deal as best we could with natural grade, but to capture the same general north to northeast view, which Peggy had her heart set on. And that started the process of where the living room would go, and then how to make connections. So that's sort of, so then within that, because we're so high up off the ground, not only is there, an entry stair that really is inviting, and I think will be the first thing to catch your eye when you come onto the property. But more important for Peggy is there's a lift from the driveway into the house. And so that also touches upon aging in place issues. So Peggy can be in that house for a very, very long time. In addition to the breakdown of the massing that you see, and certainly at the very back of the property, there's really only about 10 foot of height, as the Carrie has sort of gently carved a flat area garden in the back that will have a relatively small retaining wall, but it also limits the exposure of the house to the neighbor up the hill. Is again a lovely roof terrace on top of the garage. We did pre-vet the project with planning, with the hopes that we could limit cut too much as possible, and we did reduce the size of the garage, and just back to design, where the overall play of the siding on 921 was more vertical in nature. This is horizontal, and then picking up on 921, there are these shifting patterns, where in one case it's vertical, and then in our case it's horizontal. We're planning on using, instead of a lighter beige color, as you can see, muted, we're not quite sure, gray to a blue-gray color that I think will, look beautiful against all the plantings Carrie's planned. There'll be some deer fencing. You can see we're trying to, best we can, limit a strong top cap to try to keep things porous and open and have the feeling of the hill sort of falling into the back of the property. And really between the houses, there's the idea is the kids will be running across the hill back and forth. There's a back door, not going all the way downstairs, down the drive and up again. but a lot of focus on the connection for the families. And at 1,800, give or take, square feet, we still were able to get 2-bedroom, 2-bath with what we call a flex room, which will be like a TV room or whatever. And the house is, I believe, quite open and livable. And I look forward to your comments and answering your questions.
Sounds good. Thank you for that. Board members, any questions of our applicant or property owner? Christine or Marshall, any questions?
I don't have any.
I don't have any either.
Okay. I have just a couple. Let me get back to my questions here. What are the materials of that? The front entry staircase is a big component of this. What is that made of?
Oh, that's described on the image sheet. That is picking up the same board form concrete at 921 at the lower level. And then facing the garage, we found a concrete tile that mimics board form. As you know, costs are crazy.
Yeah.
And so again, in the spirit of tying these projects together and grounding the project, those are the materials of choice. At some point, the stair past the first landing then becomes supported on a steel riser. So
Okay.
it doesn't ground itself. It's trying to sort of start floating up to the top of that deck. We had to change those support walls just a bit from the rendering. But anything under the landing and under the stairs is trying to be not grounded as light as possible and sort of let view through, landscape come through, and just have the visitors sort of being engaged, sort of sweeping above and around a garden hillside on the way to the front door.
And what are you thinking about for railing on that staircase?
A metal railing for maintenance. We found a company that provides components, and they have a guardrail with an integral light to it. So all the lights, coming down. Mm-hmm. Again, the conundrum with an open stair is that there's no place to get step lights or anything in there. So, but obviously we want to light the stairs. All the path lighting in general in the gardens is actually for economic reasons, is trying to be attached to the house and throw light onto paths around the house. And then some sconces, et cetera, and all, night sky focused light.
Gotcha. And then the railing on the rooftop deck over the garage, is that glass?
Will also be metal vertical uprights with a metal top cap. The infill at the deck at the garage is meant to be glass, similar. It's a small detail that you may not have noticed unless you went by recently, but we have glass infill on a deck at 921. The stair itself, though, will be cable rail. Again, very light, and the focus in terms of the metal is all about long-term maintenance.
Okay. And then guest parking. Where do guests park for this property?
The existing road.
Okay, out on the street.
Well, either out on the street or the existing road is such that you could have someone park and with 921 still coming by. I mean, I can't guarantee in 50 years or, we're assuming Stephen's kids are going to move into this house and it will be in the family in perpetuity. But at least for the near future, Stephen's property is such that there are 2 guest slips that could also be accessed. I'm assuming he's willing to share with his mom. I can't be sure.
Yeah.
There's
And
no,
just-
in terms of other related planning requirements, there's no other way to make the site work. The garage has 2 slips, and so a guest can certainly come into and park in the garage.
Okay, and what else did I have here?
And Ted, if I may, on that, because easements, future owners, once it's maybe not your family, or if it isn't your family, and it's different owners, unless it specifies it in the easement to include parking, it generally does not include parking. But Litchfield Avenue itself has public parking on it, and so that, and I believe the design is actually modifying so that there's sort of a distinguishable way to walk up the hill, walk up to the house as well.
Sounds good. And then this one's fairly close to Litchfield, so parking out on the street wouldn't be that.
Yeah,
big.
there's a long expanse along the road where my property.
Yep, parallel parking there.
Mhm.
Those are all of my questions. I think that's it. Christine and Marshall, last round, any other questions?
No, I don't have any.
All right, not seeing any. Thank you, Amy and Peggy, for the presentation.
Thank
We're
you.
back to the board
Thank you.
for a little discussion and see where we go here.
Okay, do we sign off right now and then?
No, you can listen into what we have. We may
Okay.
have questions of you as we're kind of discussing things.
Okay, great.
So we'll just kind of chat about it and see what the consensus of the board is. But yeah, please hang with us. All right, Christine and Marshall, comments, thoughts?
I
Go ahead.
have, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, you know, I really, I looked at this and I was looking for things to question, of course, and I didn't find any. And I basically feel it's an excellent design and it's very appropriate to the site. And some of the details don't really matter to me. You know, I'm looking at the bigger picture usually, and I just think it's very well done.
Yeah.
And so I have really not much to say, and I don't, you know, don't have any questions or criticisms, and I personally feel we should approve it.
Sounds good. Thank you, Marshall. Christine, thoughts?
I too think it's a very nice design. I appreciate the work that Amy's put into it, for sure. So my only concerns on this project would be in relationship to the site drainage and the easement issues. And in reading the staff report, it seems like the attention has been paid to that. And it's been dealt with, but that would be my biggest issue. That engineering has a good look at the drainage, because we are changing the drainage on the site, the natural drainage. And there was this discussion about the easement. Seems to me from the staff report it's been handled. But that would be the only concern that I would have on this project.
Yep. Sounds good. Yeah, and I agree. I think the design, you're shoehorning a house into a very challenging piece of property. I did a lot of work in the open hills after the fire, so I understand hillside construction, and I really don't want to know what your retaining walls are going to cost.
Neither does Peggy.
Neither does Peggy. Close your eyes, Peggy. Just go with it.
We'll have a GoFundMe.
Totally.
For retaining wall.
But I agree. I think it's a nice design. I think it complements the house next door nicely. Really, the only place I was a little bit concerned is the one wall on the front right of the house I think it's the wall of the walk-in closet for the primary bedroom and the laundry room. It's kind of a big blank wall. I know we've got a ginkgo tree planted there that's gonna screen that. And I know that the idea is that the attention, your eye is gonna kind of shift over to the front door and the deck over the garage. But you know, it may not be a horrible thing to get a high window in that closet. But other than that, I think it's a lovely design, and I'm all for it.
May I say something?
Sure.
Thank you for that comment. We were planning on skylighting the closet just to maximize wall space. I think it's understandable that in this size house, the thing that's always sacrificed is, storage, circulation, that kind of thing. And really the hope for that wall, and it was always that the shadow, which won't always be in shadow, of the tree against the backdrop of the house, as in the wind and the sun, and as that moved, the blank wall was not done without thought. It was just meant to be a potential black backdrop for landscape that would come.
Yeah. Sounds good. I appreciate that. Okay, board members, sounds like we're all in agreement. Oh, go ahead, John.
Real quick, I wanted to make sure that we open this for public comment before.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, sorry. I should have gone back to my agenda here.
You're right.
We don't meet often enough, so.
I know.
All right. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak on this item? Have any comments?
If so, just raise your hand or unmute your phone. Unmute your videos. Get a hold of me.
Sorry, Carrie, I had ignored your chat too. I didn't see the chat button pop up.
I am not seeing anything, so public comment is closed for this item.
Sounds good. Thanks, John. Thanks for the
Yep.
reminder.
No problem.
All right, back to our board members. Sounds like we're in agreement. Would somebody like to forward a motion, please?
I would like to make the motion to approve the project as it's designed, with the stipulation, which I think goes without saying, that engineering is satisfied with the drainage on the property.
Sounds good. We have a motion. Marshall, would you like to second that, or shall I?
Well, I'll second it.
Sounds good. We have a motion and a second. I don't think there's any further comment because we're all in agreement. Let's call a question. All in favor of approval? Please say aye. Raise your hand. Aye.
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 All right, so I have 3 ayes from Marshall Balfe, Christine Lovell, and Ted Luthen, with Kerry Bush recusing himself and Lars Lamberg absent. So that motion passes.
Amy and Peggy, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you so much.
Good luck
I
building that.
just have I have one more comment, Ted.
Go right ahead,
Project.
Christine.
Yeah, I just want to thank Amy for 2 really nice buildings, residences, and I really appreciate, Amy, your attention to detail.
Thank you
don't see
so
it often
much.
enough, and you're being really well thought out, and I just want to commend you.
Thank you. Now, the only thing is there aren't any other lots left in Sebastopol, so I don't know if I'll see any of you very soon.
Oh, there are a few, Amy.
They're cute scattered around.
We'll find you some.
Okay, please do.
I have a sneaking suspicion that there may be a new subdivision getting brought into town on Covert. There's a house for sale on 1 acre and a quarter, and it's priced such that somebody must be thinking that, so
Wow.
keep your eyes open. It would have to get brought into, it's in the sphere of influence, not in the city, but I'm suspicious about this one.
At Covert, though, that's a flat piece of property. Amy's not interested. She only wants hard ones.
No, right.
That's too
right.
easy.
I'm
What was I thinking?
I'm
was I
so
thinking?
relieved with, Peggy knows I'm working on a project out near Davis, near her old home. And oh my God, it's just, the flatitude is is wonderful.
Sounds good. All right, well, thank you all. And then I guess it's time to move on to our second agenda item.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 6B, Design and Review Board, 700 Gravenstein Highway North, Burger King turning into a Starbucks.
All right, so this is a design review proposal for a new Starbucks location at 700 Gravenstein North. This project was reviewed at the March 8th Planning Commission meeting, where it was approved for the continuance of a non-conforming drive-through and parking reduction. The Planning Commission did also recommend that the DRB consider additional bike parking if space accommodates for it, as well as adding EV charging stations because of the loss of 2 parking stalls with the reconfiguration of the parking area. The proposal includes exterior changes to the building, including the relocation of the drive-through window, parking lot restriping, new roof, paint, landscape, and outdoor dining. And Elizabeth Valero from the project team is also here to answer any additional questions about the project. I'm not sure if you have any slides to share. If you do, let me know and I can grant you access.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. I have, the only thing I have to share is the elevation, which I can share my screen if that's okay, or you could pull up yours, John. Just want to start off with that.
Go ahead, you should have co-host.
There we go. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Good afternoon, everyone. Starbucks is, and I could sort of, review specific CUP issues if you have any, but I'm just going to go right into our design here for the design board. Starbucks is proposing a very simple remodel of the existing Burger King, and we're trying to keep it sort of spruce up the site and the building in the way without altering too much of the existing building or the volume of the building. And so we went with, besides the full interior remodel, the exterior would be, like Jay noted, new roof cladding, seams, paint, repatch and paint the existing facade. And you can see that it's of a specific color of both organic white and requisite gray. We are adding a new drive-through window with an awning above, replacing existing windows and doors. There's a planter in the front here that we're demolishing the center portion and creating a bench with tables and chairs for outdoor seating. We're modifying a portion of the existing planters and adding new vegetation plants in and around the property and in the planter area. So it's going to be a very simple remodel for the exterior. I think it's going to be very nice. Of course, we're going to add new lighting and new signage, but we're trying to keep it clean and simple here, especially because we don't want to disturb too much of the existing drive-through use and Burger King restaurant use. But again, the interior will be a whole new interior. That's pretty much it. And if you would like, I could kind of go through the CUP conditions. I think Jay has shared it with us, and we are all in agreement with accepting the conditions from the CUP or the Planning Commission hearing. So if you have any questions on the design or the previous hearing, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sounds good. Thank you for that little walkthrough. Board members, any questions? Marshall or Christine, anything?
I have no questions. It's
a very thorough set of plans, and it's, I understand it, I think, pretty well, so I have no questions.
Okay. Any questions?
I think one of the big issues on this proposal is the parking, if I'm correct. The loss of net one parking place.
Yeah, there was a reduction in parking, which the Planning Commission did approve. For that, though, they're revising the way that the parking and drive-through exit operate, because its current orientation and operation doesn't really make sense at all. You kind of enter that parking area almost through the drive-through. So with the changes that they're proposing, it increases the safety of that parking area. However, it does reduce the parking stalls by one, and that's where the Planning Commission requested additional bicycle parking, because there's a transit stop close by, as well as some trails and stuff like that where people could be either walking in or bicycle.
And I also have that proposed site plan pulled up so you could see that. I think the impact of reducing that one parking space shouldn't be very noticeable, but we're happy to add also the additional bike racks. And you can
Where is this bicycle parking?
we could locate it wherever we're required to locate it. We usually locate bike racks in front of or in and around our property. So this would be the entrance. We could locate it around here or in this area. I think there may be specific, I don't know, Jay, if there's any specific location requirements from planning, but we're open to locating the bike racks wherever it's required.
So right now on this plan, there's no bike racks shown. I'm not missing something. There are no bike racks shown on this plan.
No.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when they're talking about bicycle parking, like what constitutes bicycle parking? I mean, you could have a rack and put 10 bikes, or I mean, I see bicycles piled up next to each other. I mean, like what would designate if they want if planning wants 4 bicycle parking spots? What does that mean? Does that mean 4 little racks? Does that mean this space? I mean, what does that mean exactly? It's not like car parking that has a designated size.
We actually do, Christine. I believe our code specifies the U loops, and each the upside down U. That's the
Right.
tubular 3-inch or so steel or galvanized. I believe that's what we use as our bicycle parking standard, and each of those would constitute 2 spaces, because you can do 1 bicycle on each side.
Okay.
And then obviously
So
it
you'd have
needs
to
to be
fit
done
2
in a way that you could fit the bicycle. It can't hang over into the drive-through
Right.
or, and the parking areas.
Okay. Thanks, Carrie.
And so generally, just so Elizabeth knows, generally we would ask the applicant to propose that based on
Okay.
our regulations.
Okay, no, that's fine. We usually do, we would locate it. Of course, we can't impede any path of travel, but we try to locate it within as close to proximity to the entrance and near the parking spaces as we can. So we could definitely find a spot.
Yeah. I think that would be great. And yeah, somewhere, nice visible spot would be great.
Yes.
Because I do know we have an issue with bikes disappearing.
Yes.
A lot of places do, I think. And there was also a note from the Planning Commission, I believe, talking about some sort of safe path of travel from that parking lot in the upper left, on the left-hand side of this plan, across. Is that doable? I don't really know how.
I'm not, we could stripe a walking path. I mean, we do have a handicap accessible parking stall and path here. I'm not sure what we can do to help pedestrians walk towards here. it doesn't, how do you say? That's sort of, I understand what the planning commissioners would like us to do, and it would be ideal, but I'm not sure if we even do the striping, if the customers will even follow the path.
Yeah.
At this point, you know, our main goal was to, if you see the previous current layout, the drive-through kind of dives into the existing parking here, and then you'll have people going into the parking space and drive-through coming out at the same time. So it's kind of a messy spot here. So what we did was we closed it off and created an island or a little block here.
Yeah.
That separates the parking. So it's really easier for customers or the cars to go in here and out without impeding too much into the driveway or the drive-through area. Walking wise, unless we put a, you know, I guess we could put a little path here, cross path here that shows customer path of travel. I don't want to say crosswalk, but like a striped path. That's the most we can do to show the path from the parking lot down there to this area. But again, it's not a building code regulation, so I'm not quite sure how best to stripe that without building department getting confused on what we're showing.
Yeah. Well, and I read that note, and I guess my after looking at this plan, I think I would be more concerned if that parking area was larger or connected to the greater parking area. But being that it is just a dead end, fairly small lot of its own, I'm guessing there's not going to be a ton of in and out. I'm guessing most of your guests that park are going to park either in those 4 spaces by your accessible parking
or here,
or in those spaces across the way.
Exactly.
I mean, me personally, that's where I would park, because I'd probably come in that driveway on the far right and jump into one of those spaces before I'd ever park in that lot. I don't think I've ever been in that lot, but I'm not really sure I've ever been in the Burger King. So I'm a bad person to ask. But I do think I think the exit path. So I guess I'm not that concerned. There's not going to be a ton of traffic coming through that driveway where your number 30 is there. And there are large gaps in the traffic leaving your drive-through. Just by the nature of the drive-through, there's a lot of start, stop, gap.
Yes.
Before the next car comes, the transaction has to take place, which gives someone ample time to cross that driveway pretty safely.
Yeah, again, it's something that I know Planning Commission has noted as part of the condition. So we could, you know, try to come up with a creative way of showing a path. But again, that's something that we have to work through at this point. I don't want to install something. I don't want to confuse more people than I want to.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think that is a huge concern for me. It would be nice to see the bicycle parking, but I'll kind of leave that up to you and staff in terms of my thing. But I think that's a nice solution of breathing some life into a building that's long overdue for a facelift.
Yeah.
Sorry,
could I ask a question?
of course.
This division in the site plan between the driveway into the parking lot and the cars coming out, is that a curb that's in there, or is that a painted line on the asphalt? What is that?
This is the actual, I believe this is a curb.
A curb, okay. This is just me, but I was thinking at a certain point, it just becomes something to trip over. And I had a thought that perhaps the curb could come out as far as that car on the drawing that's sitting there at the drive-up window. Maybe it could come that far, but then beyond that, it could be a painted stripe. Because when all these people in the little parking lot there are coming and going, and they could walk straight onto that outdoor dining area without tripping over a curb. And it's just a thought. It's not a big deal, and you don't have to do anything. I'm just throwing out a suggestion.
Yeah, the curb should be high enough and wide enough. They'll be visible. I don't think they'll trip over it, but I understand your concern. So we'll make sure that it's how do you say?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and kind of similar to that on the landscape drawing, I think it shows some sort of little plants in there.
Yeah.
I think it would be my preference just to have it concrete capped.
Oh,
I don't think you're going to get anything to grow in there. All right. Any other questions before we ask for public comment? All right, seeing none, is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this issue, or have we received any written communications?
I have not gotten any public comments for this item for today's meeting. And I'm going to look through the gallery. I'm not seeing anybody with their hand raised or getting my attention. So I will go ahead and close public comment for this.
All right, thank you, John. All right, then I'll just bring it back to the board for deliberation. Christine, Marshall, any additional comments or thoughts?
No, I have none.
All right, Christine?
So I'm assuming at this application, because we had I believe we did a sign program for this whole complex there not too long ago. So I'm assuming at this point, we're not asking anything about any type of signage. We're just approving the building itself.
That's a good question for our applicant. Is signage included in this application? Is what we're seeing what is being proposed?
We did include signage, but we did not include details. So my understanding was that it was under a separate permit. If I can include it as part of this package, that'd be great. But I think I'm supposed to separate it. So
Yeah, I think it's I think it's separate in the paperwork. It says that it's separate.
Okay.
Yeah, as the application came in, there was no signage details or sign application applied for. It was just the standalone building.
Yeah, okay.
With the modifications to the exterior, the drive-through window, and the parking section.
Okay.
So yes, Christine, they would submit a sign package that would be consistent with the sign program for the Redwood shopping center.
Okay, I thought that was the case, but I just wanted to confirm. And then additionally in the package, it was discussing these three items that were coming from planning. One was the bicycle parking, two was the path of travel, and third was this electric car charging stations. And I don't really understand what, these are just suggestions from planning. Are we supposed to talk about them? What's supposed to happen with, because we didn't discuss electric car charging stations.
Go ahead, Gary.
So just to give some context, this is considered a little bit of a major remodel. And so, you know, the Planning Commission was reviewing the conditional use permit that was required for the modifications to the drive-through and the parking reductions. And as part of that, there are a couple of things they were considering. One is there's some pretty extensive work going to happen. I mean, they're moving the kitchen and everything around on the interior. If you look at it, Ted, I have been in Burger King. I will admit that. So at what point do we try to include some of those best practice environmentally friendly requirements that we have in our code for new construction? So in this case, given the fact that they're also reducing parking, these were the bicycle parking was the 4 spaces is a city requirement. And so that is a minimum. They were encouraged to add more. It is right next to the West County Trail and There's, that's where the green bicycle lanes are all the way along Gravenstein Highway. So I would call it a strong suggestion. They didn't really require it in case it did not fit, but and I was actually hoping we'd have maybe some options to look at today with this, but I'm glad Elizabeth's willing to kind of work on this and figure out how to do this. And same thing with the EV chargers. If it were a new development, it would be required to have EV chargers. So they did want to see, assuming it was feasible, that be included in the project. And I think, Elizabeth, you also indicated that at that meeting that, including it as a, well, I don't want to speak for you, Elizabeth. Do you want to just respond to that?
My understanding was that as long as it was included as part of our building permit set, that should be fine. So, when, I was waiting for both Planning Commission approval with conditions and Design Review Board approval with conditions, and incorporate all that into our final construction permit set, which will incorporate whatever requirement conditions all at the same time. And what I could do is share that with, planning prior to submitting, if you want to take a look at the location of the bike rack and the EV station, EV charging station or parking. And then we could discuss a little bit more on the path from the corner parking to the entrance. If that's the intent of Planning Commission, is to look for visible or visual path, then we could figure out a way to stripe. But that's something that we will definitely incorporate into our final permit set.
Okay.
Okay, so getting back to my comment is, so what is the role of the board at this point in time for these three items? Are we just supposed to comment on them? It sounds like they're just going, it sounds like they're just going to be included anyway, or, what is our purpose here right now regarding these three items, Carrie?
So the purpose was because the Planning Commission did not want to step on the DRB's toes when it comes to where and how that might be on the site. They wanted to, if Elizabeth came back and with either plans or saying, no, it's not feasible, to be able to discuss that with the Design Review Board as the more site plan approval kind of oriented body. So you don't need to do anything with it, Christine. If you wanted to, you could increase the number of bicycle parking spaces without understanding how it would fit in the site. I understand it's kind of hard to do. You don't want them to be able to fit 4, but not be able to fit 6. You've added a condition that, well, you think it should be a minimum of 6, and now they have to come back to you to amend that. So it's probably fine to leave these as is. If they did want you guys all to have an opportunity, that if you felt strongly about any of them, to comment or include those in your conditions of approval.
Well, my general comment is, I think that more biking spaces, I wouldn't require it, but I think it's probably going to be a bike friendly operation, just given its location and how people travel around town. So I think it would be beneficial for the business itself to have more bike parking, because I think it will get used. That's my feeling about it. And in terms of electric car charging stations, I personally don't understand that at all, because I think it takes too long to charge a car. I mean, coffee shop buyers are not going to be charging their car there. I can't imagine that would happen. They're not there long enough. But that's just my comment on that. And the pathway, travel pathway, I see the potential issue, but I don't see how it gets changed on that site. I mean, I just think, let the traveler beware and cross carefully. But I do think the bikes are going to be, I think you're going to see a lot of bike travel there, my feeling.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. And Christine, I feel exactly the same way. So
I agree with her about the bicycles and the car charging.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that.
Sounds good. So it sounds like our board is in agreement here. Someone want to throw a motion out?
I'm not good at those.
This is probably the easiest one you could get, Marshall, because I think from what I understand, the motion is to approve the project with the findings and conditions as submitted.
I think that's kind of it. So I think we're agreeing with the planning commission on their findings, recommendations, and sounds like we are moving to approve. Well, there we go. I move that we approve the project as submitted with terms and conditions forwarded from the planning commission.
And I second that.
Sounds good. We have a motion and a second. I think we've probably got enough discussion. Let's call the question. All in favor, please say aye or raise a hand. Aye.
Ted, did you do public comment on this one?
Yeah.
Yes, I
Okay,
did.
perfect.
Yep.
Okay, just making sure.
Thank you.
Yep, we did.
You're testing me. Okay.
So I just see so many people out there that I feel like there should be more interaction, I guess.
Okay. All right, back to voting here, people. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we have 3 ayes for the motion with Carrie Bush absent and or recused himself, and also Lars Lamberg, who was absent.
Sounds good.
Great, thank you.
Motion has carried. Thank you. We look
Thank you
forward to
all.
the remodel of that building. It needs it.
Yes, thank you very much.
Certainly does.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
let's see. What else do we have? Discussion, subcommittee updates. I'm not sure that we have either of those things unless John or Carrie, you have discussion items?
I do not have anything additional.
All right.
Carrie?
Yeah, and I think the design review subcommittee update is that those standard conditions were scheduled for last night's council meeting, but John will be presenting them on the 19th instead. Although I did get a look at the agenda and it's a pretty lengthy agenda. So again,
So it might be pushed again.
All right.
I don't know. They do know the timeliness of it because while it wouldn't apply to the Woodmark application because of when the Woodmark was submitted, it would apply to any future ministerial applications. However, I guess I can share one bit of news, which is that we did, actually, John, you want to share the APR report and information?
Oh, yeah. So we met our RENA allocation numbers for housing this year or last year. And we submitted that 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, to HCD. And they got back to us saying that everything was good to go. And we met, like I said, our housing requirements for the year of 2021.
Right, and to be clear, we have an 8-year number. We have one more year in this cycle, which is 120 units in 8 years. As of 2021, so after 7 years, we have now met that requirement. And so we still have one more year, before the next cycle starts. Our next allocation is, I believe, 213. It was originally 420, I believe. I had a lot of discussions with ABAG about, they had a lot of, areas slated for intense housing development in the floodplains, and our local hazard and our general plan do not support that. Neither do we have the fire or police services to evacuate that many people. So after a lot of discussions, they ended up dropping that number to 213 for our next cycle. However, what the current meeting our numbers in the current cycle means for us is that we would, ACD will be doing determinations to see who is subject to SB 35, that ministerial process that Woodmark is going through in June this year, I believe. And you're only subject to it if you're not meeting your housing targets. So without saying that HCD is going to, find that we're meeting our housing targets, obviously we've met our housing targets since we have actually at 123 units and we're only required to build 120 this 8-year cycle. So we anticipate that we will not be subject to SB 35 starting in June or July, whenever that determination is made. And I don't know how long that lasts. I believe it's maybe like the first 2 years of the next cycle until they sort of review progress and make an assessment again.
Gotcha.
And in the meantime, we do have the RFP out for a consultant for the objective standards. I have heard from a couple that they're really, really busy and can't do it, but I did hear from one that is intending to submit. So we'll know more about that later this month.
Sounds good. All interesting stuff. All right. Thank you both for that. Thanks, Christine and Marshall. And seeing that we're kind of at the end of our deal, let's conclude our meeting.
Thank you, Ted, for another great example of leadership.
Thanks, Christine. See y'all next time.
Thank you.
All right.